Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You're listening to Season 5, Episode 17 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. A reminder, listeners, that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, we are delighted to have you back here with us on Full Time, where we get to discuss the beautiful game. G, how are you tonight, my friend?
I'm doing well. Got the weight of the world off my shoulders, but we'll get to that near the end of the show. So I'm doing great. How are you doing tonight, Scarps?
Yeah, I totally get it and can't wait to get to that part of the show, but I myself am doing very well also. In today's show, we will discuss the January transfer window, Europe's Big Five, and the Champions League. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get started today by looking at the January transfer window. And the following transfer market news comes from The Guardian. So be sure to check them out as they provide up to the minute transfer market information in the world of football. First, it's Luis Henrique, who goes from Botafogo to Zenit St. Petersburg for 27.9 million. The new Brazilian international winger has moved to Russia, ignoring interest from the likes of Fiorentina and Newcastle United, among other clubs. Gitano, this move is rather interesting given the clubs that were in for this player. So I'm going to pass it over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah. So the immediate thing you see a Brazilian right winger playing for Zenit St. Petersburg, and it brings me back to like mid 2014 and like Hulk playing there. So I like the vibes. I really do like the vibes of it. And he was successful there. It was great. So I mean, and we also see a lot of the Brazilian players ending up playing in Russia and Ukraine. Just not sure really why, but there just always seems to be a plethora of them playing in there. So it's kind of a stomping ground for these Brazilian players. I think it'll be all right. Again, I don't think he was going to go to a place like Newcastle and get like tons of minutes. Fiorentina, I'm not familiar enough with their entire squad to really say that, but I think he's going to at least go to Zenit, get some good minutes, and he's still only 24, so still plenty of time for him to get a big move elsewhere in Europe. So I think it's an all right stepping stone.
Yeah, I think it's a decent stepping stone indeed, but I'd imagine that in the future it's probably going to be wanting to play in Europe, especially if a club like Newcastle or Fiorentina or others are after you. It's probably where you're going to end up wanting to be. Next, it's Yelhi Wahi, who goes from Marseille to Frankfurt for 21.9 million. The Eagles move to replace Omar Marmoush with a quick two-footed goal scorer who leaves Marseille after just 5 months. Gitano, what do you make of this move?
Yeah, I mean, he's a couple years younger than Marmouche, profiles slightly differently. Plays more as just an out and out nine than as kind of a winger or kind of a second striker. But everything we've seen from him so far, 3 goals in his 14 appearances for Marseille, 12 and 36 for Lens. Like he can put the ball in the net at a pretty decent rate. He's still pretty young. I think this is, and we kind of seen Frankfurt do this. Bring in not unknown strikers, but kind of lower caliber strikers and really elevate them to a massive level. Obviously, Omar Marmouche, Randall Colomwani, Luka Jovic as just examples. So I think you just kind of a gut feeling that this is probably going to go well for them. He's maybe not be a superstar, but he'll at least turn good for them.
Yeah, I think this is a good move for the player and for the club. As far as I'm concerned, everybody wins here. Claudinho goes from Zenit St. Petersburg to Al Sadd for 16.9 million. Just a few months after signing a new long-term contract with the Russian club, the Brazilian is off to Qatar. Gitano, your thoughts on this one?
Basically, like kind of what we said to most transfers to Saudi Arabia and Qatar, got offered a bag. You can't really get mad at the guy for not taking or for taking it. 28, nearing kind of the end of his kind of peak, if you want to call it that. Turns 29 shortly. So yeah, it's not the worst move in the world. but definitely he's never really been a world beater either. So I think it's just for him to get a bag like the Qataris are probably offering him. Can't say no to that.
Yeah, can't say no to the money, and this for me is in fact a money move. Paulinho goes from Atletico Mineiro to Palmeiras for 15 million. The Brazilian striker and former Leverkusen player joins the Brazilian Giants for a tidy fee. G, take it away.
Yeah, kind of surprised when you look at his numbers that Leverkusen let him go. Got solid numbers all the way through. Um, even 10 and 31 for Atletico Mineiro. So kind of surprised to see him go, but at only 24 years old, still plenty of time for him to kind of bloom into a little bit of a better player and make that move back to Europe.
And I always feel like there's at least one player in every club where you kind of have a question mark around that player as to, I wonder how it didn't work out there, or I wonder why they're still not there. But different managers and things like this, maybe it doesn't fit. But regardless, certainly wish him the best of luck. And Anton Kinski goes from Slavia Prague to Tottenham for 14 million. The 21-year-old has been brought in to help Tottenham's goalkeeping woes. Gee, is this a good signing for Spurs?
I mean, if his first appearance was anything to go by, definitely. Stood on his head in the 1-0 win over Liverpool in the first leg of the League Cup semi-final. I think Spurs have been looking for kind of the long-term Hugo Lloris replacement for a while. And I'm not going to, Hugo Lloris, he got a lot of stick and his final years weren't great. But when you look back at that, that time at Tottenham, he was one of the best Premier League keepers of all time. You don't want to say nice things about Spurs and their players, but we'll give him his credit. So it's really big shoes to fill. And I think, at 21, you don't want to, put all of that weight on him. But I think definitely he's a good enough keeper that he could elevate his game as well as the players around him and give Spurs a little bit of a boost. But I also think he's going to get a lot better in time. He's only 21 right now. Goalkeepers don't peak till they're almost early 30s. So I think there's plenty of time for his level to go up and the level of the Spurs team around him to go up because they might be going down.
Very well said indeed. And of course, Gitano, we didn't cover every single transfer that has occurred this window. So were there any others as of recent that have caught your eye?
So I told you I'd want to actually have two. So the first one, Antony from Manchester United to Real Betis on loan, leaves the Premier League after his near €100 million move to United with less assists than Ederson, the Man City's goalkeeper. So, and it's not his fault that United paid nearly 100 mil for him. It's never the player's fault. But when you just look at the recruitment at United over the past decade and a half, this just it's just failure after failure after failure after failure. And if something, crazy happens that he goes and lights it up in Real Betis, it's just, I mean, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, right? If he's terrible at, on loan here, then, why did they spend 100 million on him? If he lights it up on loan, then what's the issue at United? So either way. And then the second one is actually Juma Ba, the 18-year-old center back who was at Real Valladolid. Manchester City signed him and then sent him on loan to Lens, who we just signed Abdulkadir Kushanov from. So kind of a lessening the blow of that, that deal for them. But the 18-year-olds from Sierra Leone, kind of one of the most promising up-and-coming center back prospects in the world. So haven't seen too much of him. Only 13 league appearances this year. But, for the small fee that City paid for him and kind of the potential in that move, I think it's one to keep an eye on for the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's certainly something to keep an eye on. And thank you for that insight, G. A reminder that the January transfer window will close on Monday, February 3rd. And right here on Full Time, we will highlight all of the major moves made in the transfer market. So be sure to tune into all of our upcoming episodes, particularly next week. That'll be our last one for the transfer market and the transfer window for January. And you'll be able to stay up to speed should you do that with all the dealings, of course, in the world of football. Let's get into Europe's Big Five, and we will get it started with the English Premier League. Liverpool still hold on to that 6-point lead at the top. They have 53 points. Arsenal is in second with 47 points. Nottingham Forest is third with 44 points. Manchester City and Newcastle are joint fourth with 41 points. G, your thoughts here?
Yeah, nice to see City back in the top four. Big win over Chelsea on the weekend. hopefully that's kind of the turning point for City. We get some big results here. I thought Omar Marmoush looked fantastic. He looked like he's been playing for Pep for years. Just didn't look out of place at all. Abdulkadir Kushanov had a terrible first 5 minutes with the yellow card in the air leading to goal. But for a 20-year-old who doesn't speak the language, had like 4 training sessions. So he doesn't speak English at all. He knows Russian and Uzbek. So the difficulties in communication. 20 years old, but I just love how he kind of puffed his chest out, like took it and had a pretty good rest, like 85, like rest of those minutes there. I mean, like a tough situation to be thrown in, but I loved it. He looks like he's going to be fantastic, fit right in. And then kind of look at the rest of the table. I don't think it's quite. It's a lot tighter at the top than like I thought it was. I thought Liverpool were like really gone with it. Only 6 points ahead of Arsenal. And then you look at kind of the clubs surrounding, like even Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth, all kind of, even Villa within that kind of striking distance of European football. It's really tight at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to for me, anyways, I don't know if people agree or disagree with this, but I think that game in hand that Liverpool has, that's going to be the telltale sign. If they win that and they go 9 points clear, they're in the ultimate position. If they even draw, or better yet for us, anyways, lose, then basically it's anybody's to win. But that game in hand against Everton, that Merseyside derby, that's going to be the telltale sign. And in the relegation zone, Southampton, Ipswich Town, and now Wolves are in the bottom 3. Leicester City, with their most recent win, temporarily get out of the drop zone. Apart from Southampton, it seems that it's just like one pivotal result for any of these teams that is going to change their fortunes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels like, however many games left that they have, it's however many cup finals they have left. These are all must win. And especially because it's so close, even with the teams kind of outside. So Everton only 6 points off, Spurs only 7 points off. Like, over these, there's about 15, 16 games left. Like, that's not a lot of ground to make up or lose. So I really think it's almost getting to crunch time here with these bottom couple teams, like you said, except for Southampton.
Yeah, love a good relegation dogfighting. Like we talked about last show, Leicester City had lost 7 games in a row. They win that game against Spurs. Now they're out of the relegation zone.
Yep.
Like the margins are absolutely incredibly minimal. And Wolves had that little decent run of form, I guess you want to call it, since the new manager came in. Lost a few, and now they're back in the bottom 3. So anything could change at the drop of a dime, which is fantastic to see. So we keep an eye on the relegation zone as we always do. In Italy, Serie A, it's Napoli, Inter, Atalanta, and Lazio. For me, it's a 3-horse race at this point. I think between Napoli, Inter, and Atalanta, it's down to one of them to win it. But what do you think?
I think it's a little closer to a 2-horse race. I don't think Atalanta has the firepower to sustain this little bit of a push they're on right now. Especially when you look at their form in the last 5, 3 draws, a win and a loss. Like, just they're in a good spot. They'll almost definitely be playing European football next year, barring a ridiculous collapse by them. But I think the title's probably just a step too far for them this year.
Yeah, could very well be. But even if it is a 2-horse race, I think it's going to be one of the better 2-horse races in Europe. So we certainly can't be mad about that. Out in Spain's La Liga, Real Madrid widen the gap to 4 points over Atletico Madrid in second. Barcelona and Atletico Madrid remain in touching distance. What can you say for La Liga at this moment in time?
Yeah, I think you're going to start to see those 3 really separate themselves from the rest of the group. Athletic Club are still close, only a couple points off, but even the drop past that, Villarreal in 5th, only on 34 points. I really expect over the next couple of weeks that it's going to turn into that 3-horse race between Real, Atletico, and Barca. Athletic Club will, like kind of what I said with Atalanta. They're good enough that they'll stay in a European spot, but I don't think they'll get any closer. And then in terms of those 3 competing for the title at this point, it's anyone's title. Atletico have just been in phenomenal form recently, domestically and in Europe. So I'm super excited to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and I apologize. I said Atletico Madrid twice. I did mean to say in touching distance was Barcelona and Athletic Club. But yeah, I'm with you. Real Madrid again. They will likely be in the driver's seat, but to say that Atletico Madrid can't overtake them would be sort of nonsensical. They've had a great season to this point, so we keep an eye on Spain's La Liga just the same. Again, a very good title race out there. The Bundesliga in Germany remains as is. Bayern Munich with 48 points, Leverkusen with 42 points, and Frankfurt with 37 points. Gee, there isn't much room to slip up, so it seems. What can you say for Germany's top flight?
Yeah, Bayer Leverkusen are starting to fall behind a bit, 6 points. Again, not the end of the world, but Germany also has a slightly shorter season in terms of games played. So there's a little more kind of rush for them to get back into this title race. Uh, but like we've said a couple of times now, like if the title race is going to be between these two, it looks like Bayern Munich kind of have, I don't want to call it, couple like too many steps ahead of Bayer Leverkusen here, but it definitely looks like they're in a very comfortable position going forward.
Yeah, it seems to be that way. And again, if Leverkusen even have the slightest of slips, that could be detrimental to their title hopes. France's Ligue 1 shifts more and more in PSG's favor by the game week. PSG have a now 10-point lead over second place Marseille and a 13-point lead over third place Monaco. Gee, how long before we run out of things to talk about here in regards to PSG and Ligue 1?
Yeah, I feel like the math is kind of on our side for that. They'll be mathematically winners sooner rather than later. But that's kind of the only real story out in France right now.
Yeah, it seems to be that way, and I anticipate our conversations about Ligue 1 will get shorter and shorter by the episode. The Champions League, as we move along, has officially wrapped up, and they wrapped up the league phase as of today. And now we can begin preparing for the knockout round. G, on a scale of 1 to 10, how did you like the new format of this initial part of the Champions League? Because, again, much different from what we've seen down the years.
I'd give it like a 6, 6.5. I miss the simplicity of the old group stage was nice. Like it was just very cut and dry. This is how you qualify. Like, I knew all the math in my head. I could look at any group and be like, okay, like this, that. So it's just taking a little bit of time to get used to. I also miss the fact that you got like a home and away leg against each team. Just it felt a little more fair, I think. Playing in each ground, but at the same time, I also think that you got a lot different matchups in this version of the Champions League. A lot more teams are qualifying, and a lot of teams that maybe wouldn't have qualified in like the normal group stage did a lot better in this format. So I think I'm going to give it a 6.5. It's the first year for it. Not great, but not terrible. What about you?
I'm going with a bang on 5 because I can't say that it was a failure because, to your point, it was the first season of this happening, but it wasn't something that I particularly liked either because I'm like you. I like the simplicity of the old format. So I'll give it a passing grade, but I can't say that it's more than a pass, but I certainly can't say that it's a fail. So for me, bang on 5. And I think by next season, I'll have a more definitive opinion. And we'll see how the knockout phase goes as well, because that could also swing my opinion. But after today, Gitano, the top 8 teams who will advance straight to the round of 16 are Liverpool, Barcelona, Arsenal, Inter, Atletico Madrid, Leverkusen, Lille, and Aston Villa. So your comments, G, on the top 8 here.
Well, I think the top 6, I think, are not all like locks to have gone through in like in the normal, or I guess through the old Champions League format. But like I said, like, it was really cool seeing like Lille and Aston Villa going through, and not just going through, but going through kind of in the automatic qualification slots. Probably wouldn't have seen that in the old format. So again, like that to me is like a little bit of the bonus that gets that 1.5 more than the 5 that you gave it. It's like it's all right. But when you look at that like top 8, if you were to say, who are the top 8 teams in Europe, there's a lot of big names missing, and I think that's what a lot of people are really enjoying about this is the kind of unpredictability of it.
Yeah, and again, you got to pull positives from, and I think the unpredictability, to your point, is certainly one of the positives that a lot of, especially neutral fans, look at and really enjoy. And of those remaining teams who will play in the qualification two-legged affair, they are as follows: Atalanta, Dortmund, Real Madrid, Bayern, Milan, PSV, PSG, Benfica, Monaco, Brest, Feyenoord, Juventus, Celtic, Man City, Sporting, and Club Bruges. So, these are the teams that will also go through. I'm not too sure that we're surprised about any of them necessarily because they're all, again, very reputable clubs. But who are some of the teams that maybe missed out that you are a little bit surprised about?
Yeah, so there's only a few. A lot of the clubs that missed out. I'm trying not to be mean here, but they were just kind of fodder in the Champions League. The teams like Slovan Bratislava, young boys like Sparta Prague, like great away days. Fun games, but like typically weren't getting out of their group. But to see teams like RB Leipzig, Girona, Bologna, considering how good they've been domestically, and Stuttgart, again, considering how good they've been domestically, missing out, it's a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, I would say that again. No team that should have gone like didn't get go through. Excuse me, that I thought should have gone through. I don't see any of those. But the teams that you mentioned, again, you would have liked to have seen a little bit better from. I concur with that for sure. But we got those 24 teams that are going through, and we can't wait for the next phase of the Champions League. And it is now on to the knockout phase. And the knockout round playoffs will take place on February 11th and 12th to start the first leg, and the second leg will take place on February 18th and 19th. So for all of your future updates on the Champions League, you can get them right here on Full Time. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we wrap up today's show, we want to extend our deepest debt of thanks to all of you for being with us. Your support truly means the world. Great work tonight, sir.
Thank you. You as well. It was, like I said, nice to get the stress of City qualifying off the shoulders there. We got Bayern or Real Madrid, so it's not really much weight off the shoulder, but qualification is qualification. And thank you again for having me on the show. Always appreciate it.
Always, man. You bet. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of February 3rd, 2025. In that show, we will take our last look at the January transfer window as we wrap things up. We'll also look at Europe's Big Five, and we will analyze the semifinals of the Carabao Cup. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, Podbean, TikTok, and Spaces at suittoday.com. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning into Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.